Hey everyone, this is Nathan Williams with BlackRain79.com, and I'm back here with another hand history review for you guys. So today's hand was sent to me by Andrew from the USA. He has got King 10 offsuit in the big blind in a 1 cent, 2 cent, 6 max game, although it's 5-handed as you guys can see there, and this hand was played on America's Card Room. Alright, so let's jump right into the action. Villain 19 makes the fold. Villain 20 comes in for a 3x raise to 6 cents. Now the reads that Andrew gave me on this opponent is that he is a 34-24 lag. That is VPIP and PFR. Those are HUD stats, by the way. If you guys don't know what that means, there's a link in the description below. It basically just gives you a mathematical reads based on hands that you've already played against these players. Now, when I see a 34-24, as I mentioned, that's a lag for 6 max for sure. That's lag stands for loose and aggressive. So this is the kind of player this isn't a recreational player. This is sort of a regular kind of player, but it's one of those players who's playing, a few more hands than's recommended, and he's playing them very aggressively, and it's going to have plenty of bluffs in his range as well. So I'm sure you guys have encountered players like this many times before, so hopefully this hand will be helpful for you. So anyways, the Villain 21 on the button calls. Now, Andrew didn't give me any information on this guy, but I don't believe he plays a significant role in the hand, so I'm just going to kind of not bother with him. So it comes to Andrew in the big blind now. So what's the right play in the situation? Well, I know the games have changed quite a bit over the years, and, 5-10 years ago, this would have been a fold against a normal kind of player. Well, I think that versus a lag here especially, we've pretty much got a pretty easy call in this spot here, which is exactly what Andrew does. I suppose you could 3-bet squeeze in this spot here. I actually don't mind it too much with this hand because it sort of just blocks a lot of other sort of big value hands, makes it less likely that they have one. With the king and the 10 in our hands, it seems like a reasonable hand to just turn into a bluff from once in a while versus a lag player. I'd like to know that it's the kind of lag player that can fold to a 3-bet though. Some players, especially these stakes, just can't fold to a 3-bet, so I don't want to 3-bet out of position with a hand like this against a player who doesn't fold to 3-bets, if you're following my logic there. But anyways, Andrew just decides to call in this spot here, and I think that's totally fine as well. It's more the standard play in this spot here. It's probably what you want to be doing, 80% of the time, something like that, maybe squeezing 20% or something like that. So anyways, let's go to see a flop here. Comes king high, obviously pretty good for us with the flush draw and a couple deuces. So Andrew goes for the check here, which is pretty much my standard play in this spot here. I think a lot of people check too much from the blinds these days. Like, it seems like it doesn't even matter what stakes you play, just nobody donk bets anymore, and which is just bizarre to me. I definitely think that you can and should be working some donk bets into your play some more often. I talk about that more in Modern Small Stakes and the Micro Stakes Playbook, my second and third books, because it just helps, confuses regulars and just adds an additional layer of complexity to your game. However, I don't really like it too much on a board like this because we have one of those hands that's pretty much a bluff catcher. And, a bluff catcher by definition is a hand that you want to just let them bet and you call. So I definitely do not like donk betting in this spot. So definitely on board with Andrew's decision. The lag, remember, is Villain 20, and he decides to bet roughly about, 2/3 or 3/4 pot. So Villain 21 on the button does get out of the way. He's not a part of the hand. So what should we do in a spot like this? Well, like I say, I think that our hand here is essentially a bluff catcher. And what I mean by that is I don't think that we can raise here and get called by worse very often. He is a lag, so he can maybe have some worse kings in his range, which I guess that's the one thing. Versus most regular opponents, they're never going to have a worse king in their range here. Against a lag, I guess it's possible. He's got a king 9 or a king 8 or a king 7 maybe even here. But, I still think that most of the time in a situation like this, it's one of those spots where we don't gain a whole lot by raising. We're kind of only going to get action from hands that beat us, and we're going to fold out all worse. As you guys know, I talk about this stuff all the time in my books, in these videos, and on my blog, this kind of way ahead, way behind kind of situation, how you just want to control the size of the pot. In spots like this, a lot of players who have trouble winning at these stakes, this is a huge reason why not, or why they don't win, And it's very important that you guys understand that idea here, that a raise really doesn't accomplish a whole, there's not a whole lot of wins in that for us, right? Folds out all his bluffs and all his worst hands and gets us action from all the hands we don't want to be against, like King Queen and Ace King and all that kind of stuff that has us smoked. So for all of these reasons, I'm definitely going to highly agree with Andrew's decision here to just check call. Let's go to a turn. Turn comes with the offsuit 8. Now, once again, just, in that same mode of thinking that we're in a bluff catching situation. There's not really a whole lot of point in, leading out or anything here. I'm definitely going to agree with Andrew's decision again to just check. And the interesting point in this hand for me is when the lag decides to pot it on the turn here. Now, it's a pretty difficult spot. I mean, I would say that normally against a typical 2/3 pot or half pot bet here against a lag, you might have to, make a kind of a call here because he's going to have a fair amount of bluffs and draws and stuff in his range, and you just kind of have to call a little bit wider against these kind of players. But when he pots it, that really kind of changes things quite a bit for me. And I think that a player like this might be leaning on the I have the nuts kind of hand in a spot like this. He might have read my first book and he's using these staggered bet sizing amounts that I talk about all the time in Crushing the Micro Stakes of when you have the nuts, just make the most stupidly obvious play on earth and just pot it. And honestly, a lot of people have read my book. So it is possible that he's just slamming the nuts into us here with Ace King or Pocket Eights or something like that. So as kind of gross as it is, I kind of think I would lean towards a fold here. I would like to be able to beat another king as well. Like if I'm going to make a call here, Andrew does call here, by the way. I'll just get that out of the way. I'd like to call maybe a little bit more if I have a King Queen here, so at least we're beating King Jack or something. But I think at this point it's getting a little bit thin because we're kind of just hoping he's on a wild bluff or on a draw at this point, and I just don't know that if I want to pay a full pot size bet to find that out. Like I said, I'm going to call here if he bets 2/3 pot, half pot, which is what they normally do. When he pots it, I think I'm going to get away here, especially with a marginal hand like King 10. As Andrew calls here, let's go to a river. River is super interesting here because it completes the flush, but it also gives us top 2 pair. So super interesting spot. Let's see what Andrew does first. Andrew decides to check, which, again, I think is definitely, once again, it's just going to be the best play in this hand. I don't think that betting out here is going to accomplish a whole lot for us. I know that it's possible that we miss value versus an Ace King or a King Queen if we check and he checks back, but versus a lag, I do want to allow him to continue bluffing at the pot. Maybe he even value bets those hands. I mean, a lot of these players are just too aggressive for their own good, and they just have to slam Ace King into you the entire way here, which, to be honest, to give lags credit, that does make sense in some cases because they'll get looked up lighter, and it's an adjustment that you do need to make, especially in higher stakes games if you are a loose and aggressive player, because you're going to get called wider, so you do need to ship your King Queen and your Ace King here because, well, it's for value. You're going to get looked up because people just don't give you as much credit. So for all these kind of reasons, I definitely... Well, that's the reason for him possibly betting here, or for Villain to possibly betting, but I do like Andrew's decision to just check. I just don't see a whole lot of reason to bet out here. And now Villain 20 does decide to go all in, so it's kind of an interesting spot. I think we have one of these situations now where we basically just have to make the call. I mean, if he, I know he's going to have the flush from time to time, but I also, as I just talked about, I think that players, especially at these stakes, can definitely just be overplaying something. And as much as I didn't really like the turn, the call on the turn, I think that, if we're going to make the call on the turn, I don't really know how we're going to fold on this river now when we're ahead of all the kings now. It sucks if he has some sort of boat or flush, but I just don't think I'm folding or else you need to ask yourself, why are we calling on the turn, right? So anyways, we'll go to the showdown there, and he shows up with King 8, which is pretty interesting to me there. I don't think this guy's really reading the board correctly. I definitely would not recommend shipping your King 8 on the river there, but crazy lags at the micros are going to do crazy things. So, it's an interesting hand overall. I'm going to say, though, that I do like just folding on the turn. It's obviously always easy to look at, situations like this and say, oh, we had the king 8, we should have folded on the turn. Now, of course, as I always talk about in these videos and in my blog and books and everything, that's not how, winning players approach the game. We need to always be thinking about the process, the range that he's on. He had king 8 this time, but could he have some other hands? Could he have had some sort of draw or something like that, or some sort of bluff? Yeah, of course he can. But overall, for all of the reasons that I talked about, the full-size pot bet on the turn specifically, I prefer just letting this hand go. But I think, when we do call on the turn there, I don't know kind of how you fold on that river. So overall, my thoughts on this hand are good hand overall, Andrew, but I'm not really sure that your call on the turn is going to be turn a profit in the long run. And I guess that's just kind of the bottom line for me is, I'm not even sure that it turns a profit or call on the turn there. So I would really just like to, so for me, I would typically just pitch it on the turn there. I know it always sucks to fold your top pair versus a leg, but bet sizing and stuff like that is going to play a role for me in that situation there. So anyways, I hope my analysis was helpful for you. Thank you for sending me this hand, Andrew. And I hope that the rest of you guys enjoyed this video as well and my thoughts on the hand. But as always, I want to know your thoughts on this hand. So how do you typically play against a lag at the micros? I know that I've had lots of videos on this in the past, and it's always interesting. And this is actually one of the top questions I get all the time is how do you play against these wild maniacs? So, it's not easy, guys. As I talk about all the time, they have a wide range. But, let me know your thoughts. How do you typically approach a situation like this with king 10 offsuit in the big blind versus a lag player who you hit your top pair and then he's barreling the whole way? Are you calling down? Are you getting away perhaps on the turn? Let me know specifically about the turn bet sizing, because I think for me personally, that's the most crucial aspect of this hand. Like I said, I think that if Villain decides to bet a normal amount, 2/3 pot on the turn or half pot on the turn, I'm much more inclined to call versus a lag player. But when he pots it, for me personally, I'm going to get out at that point. Anyways, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you guys give this video a like if you enjoy watching microstake strategy videos like this. And also subscribe to my channel as I'm putting out new videos like this all the time. And lastly, make sure you download a copy of my free poker cheat sheet. It's called Massive Profit at the Micros. The top link in the description below. It's a roughly 57-page little free ebook. I'll give you my complete strategy on how I crush these stakes. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. This has been Nathan Williams with BlackRain79.com.